It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in, Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. It is Friday. Well, it's Free Throw Friday now. Vincenzo's here. Chris Andrews is back. You have a good trip?
I did have a good trip, yeah.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
We have a bunch to get to today.
We do, yeah.
Before next week, when it's the semifinals for basically every big-time conference tournament. And then, of course, 2 weeks from now, we'll be in the middle of the madness. So we might have to do a little bit of a different plan on that Friday during the NCAA tournament.
Well, you guys are going to have a big show tomorrow, too.
Oh, we do.
There's a lot of big games.
No,
we'll touch on some of them tonight, but,
It's the last full Saturday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. The last full one as we get closer to the end of the college basketball regular season. Some of these leagues are already done. We already have conference tournaments going. The unders are flowing in St. Louis, as we talked about last weekend. But, I want to start before we get into things because, look, we don't necessarily want to interact with Twitter, but it's been a story there today, and it was a story yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That UAB Temple game, which I will tell you, I bet it on the night before. I bet it at 2. So I was ahead of the market craziness here.
You laid the 2.
Come on. Come on now, Vinny.
I want to clarify.
Laid the 2 with UAB. I thought it should have been 4 or 5, personally.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question.
So, weird spike. Within an hour, went from 2.5 to 8.
Yeah, we closed.
You came back to you closed 8.
No, I think we closed 7.5. Somebody took the 8 off.
Yeah, so then it balanced itself back out. Closed 7.5, 7 at some shops as well. Chris, what are your whole thoughts on this? Because there's a lot of people out there saying a whole lot of things.
A lot of chatter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let Vinny take the next step because there was something that he and I both heard, but I'm going to let Vinny talk about that. The first thing, I talked to a couple different guys this morning, and both of them thought, are we rushing the judgment here with social media that the fix was in or whatever? Maybe. The first guy said, I think it was maybe just a bad number. So that's what I was going to ask you, Jeff Parles.
I thought
you laid the 2. Did you think it was just a bad number?
I thought it should have came 4, 4.5.
Okay.
So it's one thing, like we see college basketball games move 2.5, 3 points all the time. Mm-hmm. We see that all the time, especially with totals. Sides not as much, but usually not this deep in the season, but early in the season we see 5, 6 point moves, especially when you guys behind the counter are preoccupied with football. And
moved 2 points today, right?
Yeah,
the game hasn't started yet. Just as an aside.
Yeah, like you see 2, 3 point moves all the time. Mm-hmm. It just once it crossed from 5 to 5.5 to 6 to 7 all the way to 8, it's like okay, something. We're all within a short period of time. Right. That's what kind of the flags come up of like, all right, what's going on here? I'm not saying anything was nefarious. Temple's was playing well going into that game. They were due to lose a game. That's part of the reason I liked UAB. And UAB is a pretty good basketball team, in all honesty. So there are a lot of things that are like, okay, if this moved from 2 to 5.5, all right, no one's even saying anything. The only reason people are even saying anything because of the rapid movement and how far the game moved in a quick period of time, I would say.
Well, a couple things I checked because I really haven't been keeping power ratings yet. I'm going to get started this week, and we'll get into that a little more too. But I checked like the Ken Palm rating, which would include last night's result, would have UAB at about a 6-point favorite, something like that. But I checked the Sagarin ratings, which was not updated yet. Checked that early, and they would have had UAB as a 6-point favorite.
Okay.
So that
was even before last night's result.
Before last night's game.
Okay.
So I mean, Jeff, you may be on to like, okay, it was just a bad number. Now, I think, listen, the radar has to go up on something like that. It has to. It may be nothing. It may be something. But I think you have to at least investigate it. We'll find out. It'll all come out in the wash. But, it was interesting. But by the way, so we, I hate to say we move on air, but, at some point you got to do a little bit. We had the game 2, kept going up, and we stayed under the market to take a bet. And we finally got to the number, and then they took the 8. I checked. That was the first thing I checked this morning. Well, we actually beat the game.
Mm-hmm.
We had a little bit of money at -2. We had some money line play on the favorite, but then they took the 8. I'm not sure if they took the 7.5 or whatever. But we wound up beating the game. So that was my first thing that I was looking at. But anyway, I heard some other rumors, and like I said, I'm going to let Vinny talk about it because he heard the same things. And let him go.
Anytime something like that happens with a significant line move. So let's say it's a 6-point line move, right? On average, depending on where you saw it, 6.5. The first thing you can do is, as the bookmaker, you can just hold up on the game. You don't have to. It's not like you have to leave it up and open. And if you want to look at something, we do it all the time with the NBA because of load management, right? I mean, let's face it. There's constantly, and as we sit here, there are alerts coming in on the NBA as to who's playing, who's questionable, who just got declared to be a go for tonight and things like that, right? I mean, the Lakers are the classic example between AD and LeBron. In the case of yesterday's game, Jeff, you always hold up on it. Now, some of the things you hear all of a sudden are, especially in this day and age of social media, that there may be something nefarious or something suspicious on a player or on one of the teams or group of players or whatever the case may be. It's very difficult anymore to with social media has got some benefits too, and that is there's no secrets out there anymore, right? So if the NCAA, are they going to look into it? Sure. The NCAA, don't forget, monitors the betting numbers too. They've got the ability in their headquarters in Kansas City to monitor, and if they have any questions, all they have to do is call us. Not every limit play, not every line move or run on a team is suspicious activity, right? We're in the business to take money. Do we want everything to be up and on the Of course, we do too, right? Integrity is something that we've preached before companies were named after that, okay? So the point is that in this case, we did take it down. We adjusted. To Chris's point, you don't simply on the overnights put up something that you do. Like if you look and you say, "Well, I make the game 6." Well, there's 2.5 out there. You don't put up 6 because you're guaranteeing yourself one-way action, particularly on the overnights. They're going to take everything from 6 down to 3. So you adjust it. You see what the market is doing. You move it quicker, okay? Stay under, in Chris's point, which I agree with, you absolutely stay under the market value and let the money dictate it, and then you find the buyback threshold. Now, if the NCAA says, hey, we have some concerns here, well, there's a procedure in place that they go through. They would notify the Gaming Control Board here, who in turn would notify the licensees, and then we come forth with them and say, here's what we're looking at. But the way this thing, and our phones were blowing up yesterday too. Is something wrong with this game? Well, I don't know. You tell me. What are you implying? What are you saying? Something's wrong with the game. The game moved 6 points. Okay, I just told you about a game that just moved 3 points today. I mean, there's 2 times a year too where a lot of that's going to happen. Right now, we're conference tournaments, and the first couple of weeks of the NCAA when the season starts, particularly with name brand recognition, blue blood teams going against some of the smaller conference teams with big point spreads.
Well, when we talk about it, we talked about it in October, November. Again, like
exactly
when in November, especially, everything is going on. College football is down the home stretch.
Right.
The NFL is 2 months to go. I mean, there's so many things going on that. College basketball, it starts, but it's and also the NBA and the NHL just started at that point.
Yeah, if it's early November, we still got the World Series.
I totally forgot it, but you're not wrong at this point.
First couple days, anyway.
Whatever. The Texas Rangers won more games in November than the Pistons did. But again, at that point, you mentioned it, like 4, 5, 6 point moves on sides all the time in November. I mean, forget totals. I mean, totals will bounce all over the place in November.
When Kentucky's playing Northeastern in early November, and they're a 21-point favorite, and all of a sudden the game goes to 16, what does that mean? Right?
It means you had a wrong number on Kentucky, according to the bettors. Okay? That's all that means.
We didn't move it in half-point increments either.
Yeah.
So,
again,
if something comes up about it, we'll address it, and but until that happens,
A lot of rumors out there.
Yeah.
Right now. I'm not sure I want to get into all the rumors because there's plenty of them out there. But let's see how it all shakes out.
I think that's all you can really do. Wait and see, right?
A lot of commissioners out there right now. A lot of regulators out there.
Like the first thing I checked is we beat the game. So, my radar wasn't that high on it. And my people handled it properly. So
yeah, and Temple, again, a reasonable team beat a mediocre team.
Yeah.
All it was. In the end, I know it was.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say laid the 2 because that was one of the first things the guy told me this morning. So I think it was just a bad number.
No, well, I thought again, my science on college basketball is not an exact one, but I was thinking, when I was just going through everything, I was I'm surprised that this was not UAB 4.5. That's why I was like, all right, I'm going to take the 2 because
the guy I thought I thought
it.
6 was closer to the right number. That's what the guy told me. So, I mean, like I said, I don't know. I haven't been doing my power ratings, but so it's certainly not down to that level.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the actual games tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start in St. Louis first because a team that should be on the bubble, but probably not because the committee's lack of liking of these good mid-majors, and that's the Drake Bulldogs, who were in the NCAA tournament a year ago, had Miami dead to rights and then blew the game late a year ago. Pretty similar team. Tucker DeVries is still there. A very good team will go along with Indiana State, who won and handled their business covering earlier in the day. A game, by the way, Vinny, that moved 3 points.
No.
Indiana State covered.
There's an alert.
Indiana State covered that game from 9 to 12. Didn't matter what the number was. All right, so we're up to 14 here, but the real story in this tournament is the totals so far. We are 6 games in to this Arch Madness. The first half totals right now to the under are 5-1. The only game that went over was last night's UIC Southern Illinois first half. They're 5-1 to the under full game. The only one that went over was UIC Southern Illinois because it went double overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So the totals in this, it's actually pretty funny how this one's played out. You open 144 on this game total-wise. They bet it all the way down to 142.5, and here we are back to 144. So I'm going to say the bettors think that opening number is where it should have been.
It looked like it was pretty good, yeah. So
let me say this for Ann. 2-way action on the total. There you go.
And up to 14 as well. You opened 13 on this game.
Yeah, we did?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. I'm still getting caught up. I'll let my guys handle
13,
it. They're
13 and they laid to 13, and that's, again,
They're
double digits, and they'll and move it accordingly. And again, so a lot of movement on the totals. And again, the total plays, and when you see the total plays too, Jeff, these are not half-point increment moves on totals especially. They're 1.5, sometimes, anywhere from 1 to 2 points. Probably on average on the first hit, about 1.5. And that's a very respected professional money that comes in on the totals here. The public is more inclined to bet sides and also more inclined to bet totals to the over and on the bigger schools, on the more familiar schools.
A little more familiarity with Drake, just because of past tournament success. A tournament team a year ago. Indiana State has only been at the tournament twice since Larry Bird was there. How about that? Only twice. They were wearing the light blues today. What a great uniform combination the Trees have there. And I guess the other one, we'll just be quick on this. Bradley and UIC, not much to write home in this game other than that Bradley is a double-digit favorite, open 11, up to 12. That's another one, total open 135, got bet up all the way to 137 and just came back down to 136.5. So people going against what has happened so far in this tournament in these 2 games are betting them over.
Well, I can tell you, we've had a good run in college basketball. Nothing like we're not crushing them, but we've been holding our own every day. I think at this point in the season, the numbers were all pretty good.
Yeah.
And like you said, we had some movement one way and then movement back the other way. Maybe the odds makers just blew the game with that BYU game yesterday. But overall, the numbers have been very good.
I want to go to the Mountain West because tonight's game will influence the seeding in the Mountain West tournament here next week. It will also impact tomorrow night's game where the the game up in Reno all of a sudden has taken on importance between the Wolfpack and the Rebels.
And the hottest team in college basketball.
Utah State will have a chance for an outright title earlier in the day against the Lobos. But San Diego State, coming off their loss earlier in the week here in Las Vegas, returns home to Viejas, where they are as good as anyone at home in the country. They're 6.5-point favorites against Boise State tonight, where Boise is one of those teams where all the bracketologists have them safely in the NCAA tournament. Every time I watch them, I'm like, Boise.
They have Boise
They're safely in. Yeah.
They've got six
every
Mountain
time,
West schools.
Every time I watch them, it's like, really? This team is safely in. They beat up on the bad teams, and whenever they play a good team, it feels like they lose. They did it earlier in the week where Nevada was the correct side the whole game. They win the game by 10. They could have won it by a lot more than it if there weren't some fouls late. I think this number is right, personally. If anything, I would look to lay the home favorite here at 6.5 with the Aztecs. Again, even though they're coming off a bad game, we know what the Aztecs sometimes do on the road. It just their offense doesn't show up, and that's what happened earlier in the week against UNLV, Vinny.
Well, you'll lay the better price too. I mean, South Point's got the best number on San Diego State right now. The game opened 7.5 here. They took the 7.5. They took 7. So down to 6.5. And again, a rebound spot. For the Aztecs. And you're right. Boise. To me, they are a bubble team. And again, if it comes down to, well, let's see what they do tonight, and of course what they do in the Mountain West tournament. I think they need this game tonight, and I think they need at least one, maybe 2 games in the conference tournament, because if it comes down to them and say a St. John's on the bubble, and I've made it real clear there'll be more Mountain West teams than the Big East this year. But look at current form, right? St. John's is playing playing good since Patino went mommy dearest on his team.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that's why every game is big, and really every game is big, and so are points, right? And that's, I think, got a lot to do with why the bettors took the 7.5 and 7 with Boise tonight.
Again, the Mountain West, it does feel like 6 are getting in, and there's a chance that a co-conference champion in UNLV would have to win the conference tournament.
Oh, they're live too.
I look. The games are on their home court. They're playing as well as anyone, and forget just the league. They're playing as well as anyone in the country at the moment. Look, if just don't lose to Southern at home and Loyola Marymount at the DLC. You win those 2 games, even with the nonsense against Air Force, they're probably
look what
right
Auburn
now.
did at the same time, right in the beginning of the season.
Appalachian State's a 12 seed right now.
I understand that, but still, it's a non-conference. You're an SEC school, and you had aspirations to be a much higher seed. I mean, again, they can get hot and do some. They're a dangerous team. I'm just saying that, your non-conference losses, particularly to weaker foes, or they could come back to haunt you. But again, that's here we are in March. Who's playing terrific ball right now? And UNLV is playing as good as anybody west of the Mississippi, actually in the country right now.
They are again a team in UNLV that, again, bad start, played up to the competition.
They did.
They played down to the competition. But this Mountain West, they're going to get more than the Pac-12. Even though Colorado had a humongous win for them last night, going to Eugene, winning the game as a small underdog, probably puts them on the right side of the bubble, at least entering next week here in Las Vegas. Now have to handle their business at Gill Coliseum.
Correct.
Unlike Utah last night, who went there and lost to Oregon State. What, that 8-point underdog?
Yes.
When it closed last night?
Yeah.
So Oregon State's picked off a few good teams at home this year. So there's no gimme on Saturday for Colorado. But
and by
the
the way,
Pac-12, that's double. It's still looking like double. Even if Colorado gets in, it's going to be 6 versus 3 right now.
That's what you really want to pay attention to now is teams that have a big win, a signature win, and how they respond in the following game. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Wake Forest against Duke, right? I mean, they had that emotional win against Duke at home, and everybody, or a lot of folks they anointed them. That was their ticket to to the tournament. Well, look what they've done since, right? I mean, I don't personally, I don't have them in. But again, I'm not on the committee.
Close. They're close.
But are they a bubble team? Sure. Yeah. But watch how teams respond to a big win, especially if like what we're talking about. So Colorado now with another tough task here tomorrow. They're probably going to be. I'm not saying they're going to be double digits, but they're probably going to be about an 8.5, 9-point favorite.
Let's go to tomorrow. Actually, before we go to tomorrow, I just want to ask you where again next week obviously is the week where these games are not going to be determined until the night before. So the overnight market is a little bit different on these conference tournament games, and going up a little bit later, especially with some of these games. I mean, some of these games are going to end out here in the West Coast, 10:30, 11.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, there are going to be some real late enders starting this weekend, actually here in Vegas with the WCC.
Yeah, well, that's what this is the life we've chosen.
The nature of the beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the committee's going to have some things in their mind already anyway.
Yeah.
When you get to Selection Sunday, there's going to be games finishing right before they do the announcements, right? And you think they're going to wait for those games to finish? No.
Well, they'll have the interesting thing this year is with the American Athletic, South Florida is one of the most polarizing teams in the country when it comes to the bubble right now, where they're the outright regular season champions in that league. Their non-conference schedule was a disaster, and they have some bad losses mixed in there as well. They've won 16 in a row going into the weekend, and if they don't win in Fort Worth next week,
you're probably out.
They're probably out.
You're right.
I mean, they could very easily be playing Florida Atlantic on next Sunday. The one team from that league we know is going, and if they don't beat the Owls or even lose like a 1-point game, they could be out. I mean, you're right. The committee's going to have it going up to the wire. Again, I'm assuming the Big Ten is somewhat chalky, and two teams that are clearly in are going to the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, I mean,
which I think is a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But you're right. To your point, they've got to win next week. They've got to win their conference tournament.
I think they will. For what it's worth, I do think they will.
Oh, fair enough.
Or they're going to lose the first game. No in between. No in between. I've already seen a bunch of 1 seeds bounced already in some of these conference tournaments.
Sure.
The Atlantic Sun, the extra board. Somehow got a 2 and a 4, even though for yesterday, a good chunky yesterday, it looks like it was going to be the 10 seed versus the 6 seed in the title game. But more normal in the final in that one.
Well, I wore my Bucknell shirt yesterday.
They vaporized American.
They killed them.
Vaporized American U yesterday in the Patriot League. That was the only underdog by the spread that got there.
Oh, is that right?
In that league, the 3 other favorites got there. Kai McKeon gave out Lehigh yesterday on the show. They won and covered with relative ease in a road game against their biggest rival, Lafayette. There in eastern Pennsylvania. All right, going to tomorrow real quick. I just want to bring up real quick going to Houston, who is looked at as one of the 3 best teams in the country at this point. I think that there's no arguing that at this point. If you Purdue, UConn, Houston, I don't care what your order is 1, 2, 3. They're so close in the power ratings for me. I have UConn personally first, Purdue second, Houston third, especially with some of the injuries they are dealing with at the moment. The early numbers that are out there right now for this game tomorrow, I'm seeing 8.5.
On who?
With the Cougars
Houston.
At home favored against Kansas. I'm seeing 8.5 right now as the early number.
Listen, let me go on record here. I made my numbers. I'm just kind of getting started.
Yeah.
When we do the numbers next week, I'm going to have 4 people in there. I will regard my numbers as 4th on the list. So let me just go on it. But I did make numbers for some of the games you told me about.
Yeah.
And I made Houston 10.
Made him 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Kansas, this is you want some fun. This is just shows how good Kansas has been under Bill Self. They already have the most conference losses they've had in a season under Self.
Correct.
Yeah.
If they lose this game, they will be the lowest seed they've ever been in the Big 12 tournament under Self. And you're still considered a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they're still one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah.
That just shows the level they have been at all these years. Personally, I thought I in my mumbo jumbo, I had it at 8. So if I can get north of 8, I think I am going to take Kansas with some injuries on Houston's side with guys banged up.
Tugler is out. Both of these teams have depth issues.
Kansas has horrible depth issues, as we talked about all year.
And again, McCullough, he played the other night, right? Was senior night.
Played very well, actually.
And he had a good. No, now he's still listed as questionable for tomorrow, right? So I think he plays tomorrow. This is a payback as well. Let's face it. And again, depth injuries for Houston, particularly up front. Mm-hmm. Houston better on the perimeter. It depends on if McCullough plays, Jeff and Chris, and they can get something from the perimeter. Great, but let's remember, at least 60 to 65% of their points come from inside the arc, and they've got to at least keep Houston honest from the arc. But I think that's a big question mark there. But to your point too, Jeff, they're going to be the lowest, regardless of what happens tomorrow. This is going to be the lowest seed they've drawn for the Big 12 tournament, and folks have them penciled in on. It wasn't so long ago they were on a 1 and then a 2, and I mean they've been declining. So, but a 3, them on the 3 line right now, I don't quite have them on a 3 line, and for the reasons I just stated about their depth.
They at the moment, Kansas that is 5th. They are 5th in the Big 12.
In the Big 12.
Fifth.
That's a great league, though.
That's a league that's
going to be the league with the most bids.
It's going to get 9 bids.
Yeah.
Kansas State probably has to win. Well, not probably. They do have to win the tournament in Kansas City now in order to get in after a few losses the last week or so. But look, they are. This is as good of a league as there is in the country at this point.
Strong.
And they're going to get 9 when it's all said and done, for sure. I go into the SEC. Where, by the way, I think the top of the SEC is better than the top of any league at this point, 1 through 5, even throwing South Carolina in there, even though they've overachieved. Kentucky, variance very high this year, as we've talked about with them. They're taking on Tennessee tomorrow. Tennessee clinched the outright championship of the conference regular season. Mm-hmm. I think this is far and away the best team Barnes has had there.
I think so, yeah.
The only one that's close was that 2019 team with Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams that lost to Purdue in the Sweet 16 before Purdue got Virginia'd that year in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years. I'm still mad about that Purdue 4.5 ticket that went down in that game against Virginia. It's been 5 years.
You're always going to remember those,
I
Jeff.
remember, yeah.
What's it, 5 years?
It's 5 years.
Well, keep
another
5 and another 5
ask
after
me in
that.
2039 when it's 20 years. I'll still remember.
You will.
I have things from 30 years ago I haven't gotten over yet.
Kentucky, the early number out there on this game is Tennessee 9.
It's a big number.
I made it 8.
With a total of 165, which, be honest with you, don't think it's high enough.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's a little low.
It's high, but maybe not high enough. But I made the game 8, so my numbers aren't that bad.
So I'll say this with Kentucky, and Alex and I have talked about Kentucky a ton on the Saturday show because the totals have been coming ridiculously high, and it doesn't matter. They're still going over those ridiculously high totals. The last 4 games that were all totaled in the 160s have all gone zooming over those totals. These last 4 games, including Vandy, which looked like it could have been a problem for a little bit. That still ended up going over.
What's the total you say?
What did I say? 165?
164.
Okay, I'm looking at Ken Palm has it like 163.
Okay, I still think that's low.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and we talk about it all the time on the show, where a lot of these total numbers are based off possessions. Here are the total possessions in the last 4 games that Kentucky has played. 80, 73, 86, which is loony bin for a regulation game, and 75.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a wackadoo possession game because on top of Kentucky's propensity to play these high possession games, this Tennessee team they're willing to play fast. This is totally different from Barnes teams in the past. Take out the 64 possession game against South Carolina, where they played it at South Carolina's pace and beat the Gamecocks doing it on Wednesday. The previous 3 games, 73, 77, 73. There's no reason to think this game's not going to be at least 75 possessions and maybe even more.
I agree with Chris. By the way, my number I came to on this game, 8. I think that these are the two teams that are playing the best ball in the conference right now. And again, Kentucky, you know what? They can give up 90, 92 points in a game and still win. Now, to your point about the possessions, they're making shots right now. If they go cold, that's going to be their Achilles heel because their defense outside. Although I will say this, they played very good defense in that Auburn game at Auburn, right? Yeah. So, but this will be a terrific game. Again, this is all about seeding too, right? Yeah. Even though Tennessee's probably they're locked into that number one.
What?
Tennessee's at worst a 2 seed right now.
I'm talking about in the conference.
In a conference tournament, they're a 1 seed. Yes, they're locked in. They're the 1 seed in Nashville next week.
But I mean, this is a good game. But watch it and see what kind of who adjusts style and pace wise.
I will say this with Kentucky's defense. Ever since that game against Gonzaga, which was the line of like, okay, this Kentucky team's completely broken right now.
Yeah.
If you just look at the possessions and the point per possessions, the only game that Calipari really had to be unhappy with what his team did was the Mississippi State game.
Yes.
And I know that's silly to say Arkansas scored 102, but it was an 86 possession game.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get yours when it's 86
Arkansas
possession.
scored 102 points and lost.
Yeah, and Kentucky almost covered that game, too, as ridiculous as that is. Alabama scored 95 and didn't even come close to covering the number.
And Kentucky's healthy now, too.
Yes.
So,
and he's playing the right guys combination-wise, which he wasn't doing Calipari earlier in the year. I will say this with Kentucky. You brought it up. And we talk about teams all the time, variance in the NCAA tournament. They have the highest variance of any team in the country.
Yeah.
Because if they end up on a 4 line and play a good 13, wouldn't shock me if the good 13 seed KOs them. But it wouldn't shock me also if Kentucky's playing in a national championship game against one of the high-end teams.
That's a fair statement.
Well, that game goes at 1 o'clock tomorrow, same time as the Kansas-Houston game. So
Yeah,
that's going to be a great afternoon.
Pretty good.
I mean, I'm telling anybody out there, get to a sports book.
Yes.
I mean, hopefully the South Point, but get to a sports book. I mean, there's going to be some great games tomorrow. And, we haven't even talked to Duke, North Carolina yet. Yeah, there's some great games out there.
Yeah, I would argue Duke Carolina is the 3rd best game of the day tomorrow.
I would say too.
Even on the line, we'll say it's going to be better than these 2 games. Yeah. The second matchup between the Blue Devils and the Tar Heels. Tar Heels, of course, won the first one in Chapel Hill. Now we go to Durham. Final game of the year. Early numbers, real quick. Is Duke 4.5.
There you go.
With a 149.5.
I tell you, so I made it 4. That's what my numbers came to. But I think I would take a shot with North Carolina. Jeez,
I agree with you, Chris.
Boy, I mean, that Duke game, I mean, I know Duke made a little bit of a run in the second half. But, I mean, to me, Carolina just looked like a much better team. And, listen, I know it's, a month ago or however long it was. But I think I'd take a shot with Carolina here. That 4 just looks a little steep.
Desperate, right? Or Duke playing better since the Wake loss. I think this is going to be a great 2-way betting game, to be honest. And Philip, it's all about Filipowski, right? For the most part, and how he plays. North Carolina has been the more consistent team, I think, this year.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm not going to be shocked at either side, at whatever the outcome, unless it's a blowout. But it doesn't figure to be. But I think there'll be plenty of 2-way action on this game.
The only seed in the ACC tournament that has been decided is the 15 seed. The Louisville Cardinals are the only seed that we know of where they're going to be. I have to find a list of tiebreakers because if Carolina wins, they're the outright ACC regular season champions. Will be the number 1 seed in Washington, D.C., because that's what we think of when we think of the ACC, Washington, D.C., not Greensboro. But I have to see which tiebreakers they end up using if Duke and Carolina tie with both teams winning their respective home games in that series. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow in Durham. All right, I want to go to the Mountain West tomorrow. Utah State up first. If they beat New Mexico tomorrow, they are the outright Mountain West champions. New Mexico, this number, I'm going to tell you, seeing this number, I'm a little stunned at where these early numbers are.
Where'd you have it?
So New Mexico on the road against Utah State, Total 160.5. That's right. No problem with that. Utah State only 3 at home in this one.
No.
Game seems a little short.
I made it 4.
You made it 4.
It's
okay.
probably going to go up, Jeff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
But I'll tell you the truth. I'm kind of with you. Even at 4, I think I kind of like the favorite a little bit.
I definitely like the favorite if it's sub 5. I'm a little surprised that in New Mexico, even with that ridiculous loss at home to Air Force, I mean their home road splits are still pretty jarring. Way better at the Pit than they are away from it.
I think you'll see it continue to go up.
Yeah, a little bit surprising on that. Vinny, I didn't ask you about DePaul. I'm not going to make you talk about them. They go DePaul. If we're going in the category of the sickos here, DePaul and Missouri are the only 2 Power 5 plus Big East schools that have not registered a conference win.
Oh, is that
They
right?
both play tomorrow at the same time.
Yes.
DePaul, I can tell you, is not going to beat Seton Hall in Newark.
What are they, about a 3-touchdown dog?
Very good, 22
All right.
on that one. Honestly, I would lay it. I would definitely not consider taking it. Mizzou at LSU is 7.5, which feels about right, but I would actually consider taking take the alma mater with the points in that game. You and I both thought they were going to get the win last Saturday against Ole Miss. And
I'll be
they did their
honest
best
with
to come
you.
back, but didn't happen.
Well, they lost that game in the first 5 minutes.
Yes, they did.
Right?
Yes, they did.
And then we're chasing. What were they down? 18 at half.
Down 17 at half. Got
There
it
you
to
go.
4.
Yeah.
Couldn't quite climb the mountain.
Couldn't close the deal. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we're rooting for you, buddy. You
you
don't
know,
want to have
so-
that big goose egg.
So Jim Root and I, Jim Root, who's of course of the 3-man weave, we're both Missouri grads. We're both leaning into it. We're okay with the 0-18. The way that I'm looking at it is they go 0-18 and win 2 games in Nashville. It'd be even funnier that they went 0-18 in conference play. Wouldn't shock me if they beat Arkansas in a first-round game.
They could.
In Nashville. It would also
but-
not shock me if Arkansas beats them by 25.
I was just going to say.
So,
Yeah.
Arkansas, the most infuriating team in college basketball this year. All right. Well, I didn't realize this game was at 8:30 tomorrow night.
Nevada.
Yeah, I didn't realize UNLV in Nevada is that late. I will say this: I know my co-host and I disagree on this a little bit. Alex White, that is. I think Nevada's the best team in the Mountain West. I really do.
Yeah,
I know there are some questions about
Yeah.
their athleticism. I think they have really good guard play, and they're very big. And before last night, Washington State kind of honed in on that market inefficiency of, hey, let's just play big and be bigger than everyone else. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament pretty easily, even with that ridiculous loss to Washington last night.
Well, I went to the UNLV Nevada game with Alex White.
The first game,
Yeah.
where Nevada found a way at the end.
Well, I mean, we're like, how do you have 17 turnovers and still win the game? And, Alex and I were talking about it. I said, yeah, because they out-rebounded them over 2-1.
Yeah.
I mean, they hit the boards hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, who was it? Pat Summitt said, offense sells tickets, defense wins games, rebounding wins championships. So, Pat Summitt, pretty smart basketball
Excellent.
coach.
Great coach.
Chris, what did you make this?
Okay, I made Nevada 5. What do you
Yeah.
see?
Vinny?
I made Nevada. I got them, but yeah, 5, 6, right around there.
I have to double check because my screen went blank. Yep. 6.5.
6.5. Yeah.
6.5. I don't know if I want to
Yeah.
lay that.
Yeah.
It's tight. Total's 136. I actually go under.
I think you might be able to get a better price. This number will probably go up, and if you're looking to bet UNLV, you probably want to wait.
Ken Palm would have it 7 and the total 139. What'd you say the total was?
136.
Yeah, they got 130. Ken Palm 139.
Yeah, I think Ken Palm's a little high. I think this is going to be a grinder, like that game on Tuesday, Wednesday night earlier in the week with UNLV and San Diego State.
Oh, right.
That was an ugly 60 possession game earlier in the week at Thomas and Mack.
But a good for the Rebels the way they adjusted and played a physical game. I mean, right? I think that's what surprised a lot of people.
Well, UNLV also blocked 10 shots in that game against, including the one at the end where Boone blocked the 3-point attempt that would have given San Diego State a tie game at the end. Finding a way. Again, the Rebels, look, if the Rebels miss the NCAA tournament, they only have themselves to blame for those losses earlier in the year. Just can't have Q4 losses. You can have 1, can't have 3, which is what the Rebels have. It will make, I will say, though, next week, again, the conference tournaments have already started. By the way, WCC yesterday, starting off with a bang yesterday with Pepperdine beating Pacific by roughly 8,000 points in that game.
Yep.
It was the only time in my life where I was very close, because I believe the second half was pick, and Pepperdine was up 47 at half. I was very close to taking Pepperdine pick in the second half. It would have been good. They won by 59.
Okay.
Yeah, off with a bang. But this week in Las Vegas, I know we talk about the tournament. By the way, my weekly weekly talk up here of the plug upstairs.
Best place to be.
The best place to be for March Madness. 2 weeks from yesterday.
Yeah, I mean.
And then 2 weeks from today and the Saturday, there's no place better than upstairs here at the South Point to watch your NCAA tournament games.
Guys are asking me what time to get her.
Doors open at 8.
Doors open at 8. I told the guy, be here at 7. I say, but there's not too many bad seats in that whole place.
There are no bad seats in that place.
We cover the TVs, and if you have a quote unquote bad seat, you're probably close to the bar and the snack bar.
That's not a bad seat.
Well,
that's not a bad seat.
I will say, Chris, we last year, our friend Todd Wishnev was up there, and reserved what most would say would be the quote unquote bad seats. The bar was 20 paces to the left. The snack bar was 20 paces to the right.
Did Wishnev hit the snack bar?
Maybe a few times.
Okay.
I know I did.
Yeah.
But then I know there's the big projectors, but last year, I don't know if they're going to be doing this again. They had a row of smaller TVs that were right in front of our tables. So we basically just had a small row of 4 TVs that were basically our own personal TVs.
It worked so well. I think we're just going to go with the exact same plan.
I hope so.
And I think we got, we're trying to hustle up, get as many ticket writers as we can. I think we're going to have 9 ticket writers up there this year. And Vinny, what is it? 4 kiosks?
4 kiosks.
4 kiosks.
Yeah. Is it?
So, I mean,
sports book up there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a whole sports book up there. We got TV showing the odds and everything else. So
free throw shooting.
We'll have to do it. Well, I know we're going to send Frank up there to at least take some free throws.
Oh my God! Yeah. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think he can injure himself doing free throws, Chris.
No, maybe we'll get a bull up there too.
We do need the bowl for our guy Frank Nicotero.
Yeah.
Barry Odom rode one here. What, 2.5 seconds for Barry?
I was going to say the under. I think the under.
I don't know if I
which God bless him for even thinking about doing
any more comment on that.
Oh.
But look, I know I wouldn't last time.
Give him credit for even
attempting. Yes.
Goodness.
I'm not even attempting.
No.
Frank, at my age, are you kidding me?
Frank might just not have a choice. He might have to attempt because we're just going to bait him into it. But you never know. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We get back. We're going to look at the futures book, both for college hoops.
Those updated right now, Sean?
And we're also I also have some NBA questions for you guys, because last night the Celtics went to Denver, and the Celtics
can't
were
beat them.
Swept by the Denver Nuggets this regular season. So I just ask you what that may do down the road if those two teams happen to meet in the month of June.
Sure.
That's next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
From the South Point Studio. The perfect blend of sports.
But I think the Niners are going to wear them down. Detroit Pistons lost their 36 games.
Comedy.
See over-under on that relationship lasting. I'm going to put mayo in the coffee.
Yeah. I am beautiful. And a whole lot of Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Join Ryan McCormick.
That's at least 2 picks outside of our own in the first round next year. Rio.
And host Frank Nicotero.
I look at the clock, I go, ah!
Oh! Watch Punchlines live at noon every weekday.
Once you've satisfied your hunger, get ready for more of the hottest casino games in Vegas. Our 24-hour, 30-table non-smoking poker room proudly hosts all the most popular poker games with a variety of betting limits. Visit the poker room for a schedule of daily tournaments. Whether you're going to hold 'em or fold 'em, the best place for poker is at South Point Casino. You'll notice that our craps tables are usually the loudest in the casino. If you've never played, join one of our free craps lessons to find out what makes this game so exciting. Check with the craps dealer for schedules and give it a roll. Bingo is also an exciting way to spend your time. We offer 7 sessions of bingo every day. Bingo! And each session includes a cash ball jackpot, 12 bingo games, a progressive double action game, and a $10,000 bonus coverall. Electronic units are available. If you haven't played bingo with us, give it a try today. Guests can also get in on the action at our one-of-a-kind race and sports books. 2 separate rooms designed to maximize your experience and comfort. Our sports book, with over 400 seats, puts you right in the middle of the action, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book is the show. South Point Studio, the site. I'm Jeff Parles. Chris Andrews alongside. Vinny had to step out for a moment. Duty calls.
Yeah.
So,
now he had something he had to do.
Yeah. Chris, let's go to this future book here for the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
Of course, you guys have been pretty stable on these numbers with the teams at the top for a few weeks now. With UConn, Houston, Purdue. Purdue actually slid back $1 from 5 to 6 recently.
I updated them either yesterday or today.
Yeah.
Listen, we lose a little bit on like the top 3 seeds.
Okay.
But small numbers.
Okay.
Small numbers. And I think it's just so hard to find value in future books. We find somebody, listen, if you had Florida Atlantic or San Diego State last year, you probably did okay. By the time you get the hedge and everything else. But it's hard to find value. So I actually pumped up a few of these prices. So that's why I was asking Sean during the break if those were updated or not. I think we got some decent prices, but it's hard to find value. But you look. Here's the thing, Jeff, and I've been saying this for years. If you're a 1 seed, okay, you have a pretty nice path theoretically. But that second game, you're playing an 8-9 winner. That's going to be a tough game. Sometimes you're almost better off with a 3 or 4 seed. You have a chance of playing a lower seed in that second round. Or that you're a 1 seed, you got a tough game. That second game, you got a tough one coming up.
Well, you could end up with an accidental 11 seed or an accident, or again, to me, there's not a huge difference between a 7-10 and an 8-9. But
no, there's
sometimes you end up with, every once in a while, you end up with some bad 10 seeds. It does happen from time to time because the committee is more willing to put those mediocre Power 5 teams on that 10 line that they don't want to send to Dayton. Look, for these 1 seeds, I will say this with UConn, and I've mentioned this on the show before. UConn's path to Arizona this year. First weekend games in Brooklyn. De facto home games. Second weekend games in Boston. De facto home games.
Yeah.
So if there's any team that, look, Houston would get the second weekend in Dallas. Very easy travel for them.
Probably, yeah.
Purdue is looking at a run of Indianapolis and Detroit. So all these top 3 seeds are going to have unbelievably, even more than usual, easy travel scenarios. Memphis, I'm pretty sure Houston has the furthest to go of anyone to Memphis. So it's going to be easy for these teams, at least travel-wise. Again, you still got to win the game.
Well, you got fans, too, that easy travel for them. Those 3 teams you just mentioned were small losers on all 3 of those, but, nothing to get excited about. Right now, I'd still just rather get the action on those guys. And, I think we're certainly competitive with prices, around town that I've looked at.
Yeah, just eyeballing the longer shots that you have here. Gonzaga's 50-1. Haven't been able to get many prices like that over the years.
No.
But this is a very different Gonzaga team, even though there was a doubt of would they be in the NCAA tournament. I think they shuttered all doubt with that beatdown of St. Mary's a weekend ago. Florida Atlantic is 75-1, the darlings of last year's tournament, who have been a little bit all over the map here in 2023, 2024. And Florida Atlantic and Gonzaga are the only 2 teams on this page that even remotely interest me potentially on that. Sean, go back to the front page. There you go. Thank you. Kentucky was one that you shortened a little bit from the last check-in with this. Kentucky was 30-1, weren't they?
Yeah.
Now they're down to 18.
Well, maybe it's Vinny's wife's influence on me. Because I think Kentucky. You said it in the previous segment. If they win the first game by 25 or lose, you wouldn't be all that surprised.
No.
They have that potential. And I don't know if that's a good price, 18-1. Seems like about right. But I think that if you are looking for a long shot, that's a decent price. We'll see how the seedings go. I think Duke is a decent price at 20-1. Auburn, I've been Vinny's been touting Auburn to me all year. I can't see that for. Is that 18? Is that what that says, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
18,
yep.
I mean, that's a decent price. I mean, I could see taking something like that.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but of all the prices up there, the price I like the best is Duke.
Yeah,
I know that is weird to say.
Yeah, and I don't like them tomorrow. I just said.
I 20-1, I think is a pretty darn good price on a team that's going to be a top 3 seed.
Yeah,
probably going to be a 3 seed when it's all said and done too. Just a matter for them. I just don't. I know their offense grades out better than their defense. By the way, we've talked about North Carolina and Duke all year. I'm still surprised Duke is actually one slot better than North Carolina in Ken Pom. Still surprised at that to be the case, even though the eye test, you and I agree. I think North Carolina is just better. And the odds, Carolina's half the price that Duke is. I'm not saying that's off by any stretch. It's just surprising that a Duke team that's rated as highly in the analytics as they are, and here they are, 20-1. You normally just don't see that. It's a whole different era with no Coach K there anymore, Chris.
Yeah. Actually, we get beat up pretty good with UNC. So that's why they're a little bit low. We got
Arizona. You get beat up too, right?
That's a small loser for us. UNC though is pretty bad. I forget who bet us early in the year. One of my pretty sharper guys, and I forget what price I had, but I said, yeah, what the hell? I mean, it's a long tournament, but he made a pretty good wager on Carolina, so I have him a little lower. But I do like him, Jeff. Even though we talked about it, I made the number 4, which is pretty much what it is with Duke. But I kind of like Carolina in that game.
Yeah, all I know, I only have one team right now. I only have Kentucky futures. That's it.
What'd you take on them?
I have 2. I took one. There was the beloved trip to the border, not the Mexico border, the Arizona border.
Okay.
Because one national book had a 35-1 earlier in this week, which was
this week.
Yes.
I was going to say I might have had them
which was
a month ago,
which was wild. So had to get that. Yeah. But my predominant ticket's at 18.
Yeah. So. Okay. I still think that's a decent price. I think, the volatility as far as the chance of results with Kentucky is really broad. And I mean, if they made it to the Final Four, would anybody be surprised? I mean, I certainly wouldn't. The
quote unquote death matchup for them is if they draw UConn in the Sweet 16. That's the only matchup I don't want to see. I'll take for that future. I'll take it. I don't care if they're the 4 with Purdue. I don't care if they're the 4 with Houston. I would love it if they're the 4 with Arizona, if that were to happen.
Yeah, I would too.
I don't think that will happen because I think Tennessee is going to steal that 4th number 1 seed when it's all said and done. But if they get stuck with UConn, that's just horrendous because I don't think they can beat UConn because UConn can play their game and they can be better than anyone.
So you think? Yeah,
I think the Huskies
number
are the best.
1. You think it's going to be either Arizona or Tennessee? I would tend to agree with you.
Yeah, at this rate, but that's what all the bracketologists are saying. I think that's right. Arizona should be a pretty significant favorite here in Vegas to win the Pac-12 tournament. Tennessee will be the favorite, but there will be all those prices in the SEC tournament should be north of plus 250 with how jumbled that top 5 is.
Kentucky, Auburn,
Florida even, South Carolina.
Well, you have South Carolina in my field.
Oh, for this?
For the futures, yeah.
I don't think they're winning the title, but that would be a nice splash on the field.
I forget who. I had 2 teams I was looking at in the field. I said, oh, man, I really kind of blew it there. But, that's what happens.
Let's wrap with the NBA today. And don't talk much NBA on this show unless we have our guy Danny Burke on. But I just ask you this, where you look at the NBA, you look at the Eastern Conference, the Celtics and the Bucks are clearly the 2 best teams in the conference. You look at the rest of the way. I mean, the Orlando Magic are up to the 4 seed right now. The Sixers have fallen off without Joel Embiid.
Yeah, where are the Knicks?
The Knicks are a half game behind Orlando. They actually play each other tonight at Madison Square Garden. Doesn't look like Jalen Brunson's going to play again. Magic a slight favorite as of the last check.
Yeah.
But it really does feel like it's the crash course for Milwaukee, Boston in the East. But as we saw last night, just for the full thing of it, the Denver Nuggets have had this quiet regular season. Win the title last year. Going about their business. The analytic numbers were not particularly great through the month of January. But here we are. They now season sweep of Boston, who's the betting favorite right now. 1 game behind Minnesota and Oklahoma City. And Minnesota's going to be without Karl Anthony Towns for likely the rest of the regular season. This is spiraling towards Denver getting the 1 seed for the 2nd straight year, which to me makes them, even though they may not be the betting favorites right now, But to me, that makes them the favorites to win the NBA title for the second straight year.
Yeah, I'm at a solid 4-1 with them to win the championship. That's not a great take.
Yeah.
But I really am
the right
very,
price, though.
I'm impressed with that team. Last year when the guys were really talking about Denver a lot, and I said, Jokic, and Jeff, you weren't even born, but the guy I compared him to was Oscar Robertson.
Okay.
And
definitely not born for that.
Yeah, no, I know. But I can remember Oscar pretty good because I always thought Oscar was just such a great player, him and Jerry West, in that era. But Oscar was one of those guys, he just did everything really well. He never really wowed you. He was not Michael Jordan. He wasn't even Jerry West. But when you saw the stat sheet at the end of the night, he averaged a triple-double. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. Now, he unfortunately was in the same conference as the Celtics for the bulk of his career. When they finally traded him to Milwaukee, then he had Kareem with him, and he won a championship. I was glad he really deserved the championship. But, Jokic kind of reminds me of that. He's not out there wowing you with these spectacular moves. All of a sudden, you look down, he has 30 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists. The guy's just unbelievable. But that's how you win basketball games, and that's what he's going to do. And sometimes like Bob Voulgaris, Caralambos Voulgaris, one of my countrymen, he said, "Is it possible we have the 2-time MVP in the NBA underrated?" Maybe
it's possible. Look, he is the best player in the league at the moment. There's no arguing that. Again, it's still amazing to watch LeBron do what he's doing at this point. Year 21, and he's still a top 5 player in the league. He's not playing tonight, by the way. He's officially been ruled out against Milwaukee. But no, I don't think that's wrong. I think even though he's the 2-time MVP, honestly,
and probably could have won it last year.
Very easily could have. Honestly,
I think they just didn't want to give it to him 3 years in a row.
He's going to win it this year again.
I think so. Yeah,
more likely than not. It's incredible. And again, it's talking about. And this will some point happen for the Clippers, but we're talking about the Denver Nuggets here. Like that franchise that has been, let's face it, they've been a loser franchise for the bulk.
Mediocre would be a compliment.
For the bulk of their history, and here they are, winning a title last year.
Yeah,
and to me, the favorites to win it all this year. It's pretty amazing when you have a guy like that flip it on its head. Again, we see it in the other leagues. We saw it in the NFL. We've now seen it twice in the last 20 years in the NFL, where Tom Brady turns the Patriots from a laughing stock to a dynasty, and now Kansas City, who legitimately went 20-plus years without a playoff win before Alex Smith busted through, and now Mahomes is winning 3 in 5 years with them.
Well, Tampa was mostly a laughing stock, too, until Brady showed up there.
Tampa, the only other Super Bowl championship was Brad Johnson.
Yeah, well, might have been
pretty
a bit
good defense.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I was going to say, let's not give him too much credit.
Yeah, but no, it's, look, we're heading down the stretch. By the way, a lot of chaos in the NHL trade deadline.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to talk
where
about that.
We will end the show there, Chris. I will give you the floor on your Pittsburgh Penguins.
Pittsburgh people listening, I just can't believe they made no effort to sign Jake Gensel. Other than Sidney Crosby, he's been their best player this year. Malkin's been inconsistent, and he's, showing his age. Chris Letang, I hate to say, has not been good for the last couple years. The Carlson trade, I really thought was going to help them and make their power play one of the best in the league. That didn't pan out. But, Gensel's 29 years old. Why did they – it was like a foregone conclusion. They weren't going to try to sign him or extend him. And I just wonder, this new ownership group, the Fenway group, they committed to this team. And we've seen them kind of break up the Red Sox. I don't know what they've done with Liverpool. I don't follow the EPL that closely. But, I don't like what the direction they're going in with this franchise. And I know as a Penguin fan, since since we drafted Mario Lemieux, since we won that first cup in 90, I've been extremely spoiled. We've gone from Lemieux to Yager to Crosby, and even the 1 year when Crosby was hurt and missed, I think Malkin was the best player in the NHL because Ovechkin had a bad year that year too. Mm-hmm. So we've had this long run of the best player, nearly the best player in the NHL, always competitive for a cup, and even though we haven't won a series, I don't think since 2018, but I think I just don't like the way this the direction the team's going in, and I lament that. And by the way, Carolina and Florida made some great trades. Carolina, of course, getting Gensel. Florida already good. They beefed up their roster. The NHL East is really going to be tough, really tough. And look for those two to play for the championship of that conference.
Yeah, it's heading released in the NHL at this point. It's Florida, Carolina. I still throw the Rangers in there a little.
Got to. Yeah, sure.
Been a little more active, but those three teams. By the way, in the Metro, look out for the Islanders, who may sneak, who are on a hot streak right now, and looking like they might steal that third seed away from Philadelphia. As ridiculous as that is, and then the West. I mean, the West is a lot more wide open, even though Vegas was very active.
But some good teams,
today.
though. Good teams, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Avalanche.
Avalanche. Winnipeg was active at the deadline as well. Vancouver is the best record.
Vancouver's great.
Dallas is really Lou Finocchiaro was with us last week. Loves Dallas.
Really?
Yeah. Dallas and Florida were the two teams he liked.
Edmonton's always dangerous, I mean.
Always loaded with talent.
Yeah. So.
Get a real goalie in there, and maybe it can happen.
I still refer to him as Larry McDavid every once in a while. Yeah.
Why not? Why not? Chris, it's a pleasure as always.
All right, my friend.
We'll see you again next Friday. Tomorrow, Alex White and I are back, 90 minutes, 8:30 to 10.
Don't miss that show.
No, you can't.
There's a lot of good games. We only touched on a few of them.
There are a zillion games tomorrow, and also fresh lines on some college conference tournaments as well, and plenty to get to tomorrow as always on Saturday. We'll see you again then, 8:30 tomorrow morning, Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.